Hello everyone, Reginald Scott here. Welcome to the video. Great to see you all again and hope you're all doing really well today. Now, you join me today on a rainy day in my workshop. I've sort of just finished polishing this bicycle here after giving it a full service, after changing the handlebar for a new internally routed aero bar and servicing all the bearings and the brakes and the gears and everything. This has had a full load of work done to it. That's because the customer who owns this bike hasn't ridden it since 2022, and they thought, you know what, I want to ride my bicycle again, and so they sent it to me to get it all serviced. And I wanted to talk to you about this bike because I want to emphasize some points I make on this channel quite often. Now, interestingly enough, the last time I made a video like this, it was a Specialized Alice Sprint in the work stand, and it's another Specialized Alice Sprint in the work stand today. The main reason I'm pointing this bike out is because of the material of the frame, which is aluminium. So I get asked in the comment section quite a lot, what bike should I buy? What branded bike should I buy? What do you recommend? And I will always fall back on these main answers. My first answer, invariably to anyone who asks me about a carbon fiber bike brand or a carbon fiber bike, is
I'm going to be honest with you. I
would never recommend carbon fiber as a bike frame material. I think that carbon fiber, as I've stated in previous excellent videos that I've made on the subject, I think carbon fiber is never the best choice. I mean, under almost any circumstances, it's never the best choice. You're always getting better value for money for other materials, for example, titanium and steel here and steel here. Those are my bikes, by the way, are the three that I ride the most: titanium and 2 steel. And I also like aluminium. I think aluminium is an excellent choice if you're on a budget. And the second thing that I always tell people is buy secondhand. Even though the bike industry has almost completely collapsed recently, and prices are coming down because bike shops like my own are desperate to sell bikes because nobody's buying right now.
Show me the money! Show me the money!
Especially in countries like Brunei, where the popularity of cycling has took an enormous nosedive over the last year or two. We're really feeling, bike shops are really feeling the pinch right now. So you can pick up good deals on new bikes, but they're still overpriced, if you ask me. I'd still prefer to see new bikes come down in price, and I still think people are paying too much for new bikes. So even though I'm a bike shop, and even though it benefits me to sell you new products and new bikes, I would say buy secondhand, because that's what I would be doing if I was looking for a bicycle right now, and either I had a limited budget or I wanted rim brakes. And of course I always do want rim brakes because I'm a road cyclist, and in 10 out of 10 areas, rim brakes are superior to disc brakes for road cycling. Fight me, I'm happy to take you on if you don't agree with that statement. I've got a video all about it which I'll stick up here, and you can get absolutely owned by my logic in that video if you disagree. But anyway, aluminium, great choice if you're on a budget. If you've got more money, go custom steel or high-end steel or titanium. That would be my personal recommendations. Now, I want to talk to you specifically about this bike and do like a comparison between this and another bike I built not too long ago. So I had a customer come to me with a Specialized SL7. It wasn't the S-Works model, but it was the SL7. Obviously, the SL7 has been superseded now by the SL8, but it's still a good comparison because that's a carbon fiber bicycle. It's not even a high-end, in the Specialized world, it's not even the high-end of carbon fiber bikes because it's an older model, and it's not the S-Works version, it's the standard Specialized. And that customer paid around $6,000+ for that bike. And that bike came with, I believe, aluminium wheels, and it came with an electronic group set. It was Rival Axis or Rival ETAP, sorry. And it's electronic, that's cool, but it's like the heaviest electronic group set you can buy. And I have experience from other customers that it has been a little bit unreliable, with batteries dying and things like that, and it getting issues with the front derailleurs on those ETAP systems. which then results in you having to send parts back to the manufacturer. So again, in my opinion, I'll stick the video up here. I'm not a fan of electronic group sets. Okay, I'm not a big fan of electronic group sets. I think mechanical is just, again, better value for money. Mechanical is lighter. Mechanical is easier to maintain. And in general, although it might require more tuning on a regular basis, because obviously you get cable stretch, and with different temperatures, cables are going to stretch, and your gear tuning might go out ever so slightly. I find with my bikes, I very rarely need to tune the cables on them, but sometimes it does happen. But even with that, overall mechanical is much longer lived and more reliable in the long run. I've got mechanical group sets that I've had over 15 years, nearly 20 years now, and they're still working absolutely fine with all the original components. So again, I'd still recommend personally mechanical over electronic. So that bike, that Specialized S-Works SL7, it weighed in at like 8.5 kilos with pedals. So around $6,000, and 8.5 kilos for a brand new bicycle, and you don't have carbon fiber aero wheels on it. Okay. This bike here, I have seen these Ales frames go for around, $2,000, somewhere around there. Ales bikes, should I say, the whole bike, go for around $2,000 second hand. So if you wanted to buy a bike like this today on the second hand market, you could probably pick one up for around $2,000. So we're now comparing a second hand Ales with the brand new Tarmac, okay, SL7, around $2,000 versus 6,000 plus. Okay, now with the Ales, you get a decent, sturdy aluminium frame, which is super stiff and actually pretty aero for an aluminium bike as well. Okay, these are thoroughbred racing machines. Now, again, I'm not a huge fan of the Ales, and if I was buying an aluminium bike, I'd probably be looking at something like an old Bowman Palisar, because I really love the Bowman Palisar. Super stiff, super responsive, great handling bike. Or something like one of the CAD series of bikes, because I think those were probably the best aluminium bikes ever made. Possibly even an aluminium TCR. But still, nonetheless, really great bike, as is the Ales, okay, the Ales Sprint. Now, with the Ales Sprint, second hand, you can pick them up with carbon wheels. Now, these carbon wheels have been on the bike a few years. Obviously, it's not been ridden recently, but it has been ridden previously. And look at the braking surfaces. They're almost mint condition. There's hardly any wear on them whatsoever, okay? You can pick up carbon wheels like this very, very cheap nowadays. And these carbon rims, when they were new, were probably a couple of grand, maybe even more than that, maybe even close to $3,000. And like I say, today you can pick up carbon rims on second-hand bikes that were $2,000 or $3,000, and you're picking up the whole bike for around a couple of grand, okay? So again, huge savings to be made. And these wheels, right, with these braking surfaces from Roval, these Roval wheels, these braking surfaces are going to last you minimum 6 years, maybe even longer. I would actually say you're probably going to get a good 9 to 10 years of braking out of these things before you completely wear them out. And for me, that's value for money. I know people always go on about, if you have rim brakes, you're going to wear out the carbon rims. If I'm absolutely honest with you, in 8 years of servicing bikes here in Brunei, I have never seen, this is no word of a lie, I have never seen a branded pair of carbon wheels wear out, okay, from the braking surfaces. I've never seen that. I've seen Chinese copy wheels, like I had a pair of Zips in the shop once, which were clearly a forgery. And they wore out, but what happened to them was the brake track got warm and it just folded outwards, because there was obviously something wrong with the resin that the Chinese fakers used, and it literally just folded over like this. That is the only one I've seen that completely failed. And I've also seen, again, cheap sort of copy Chinese wheels get porosity in the brake tracks, like little holes have appeared in the brake tracks after a while, because under a very thin layer of carbon fiber braking surface, the internals of the rim is just full of little holes. So I've seen that as well. but I've never seen like a genuine Zip or a genuine Roval or a genuine DT Swiss wear out. Okay, it depends on the conditions you ride in. It depends on the geographic location where you ride in. It depends on the weather. But generally speaking, carbon rims don't wear out quickly, especially genuine carbon rims from genuine manufacturers. They last a really good long time. Again, I mean, I've had my Hypers on here for what, like 3-4 years? And I don't know if you can see. Yeah, virtually no wear on the braking surface whatsoever. So the hubs will wear out before these do, because the cheap Chinese hubs on these things will wear out long before the carbon rim does. So I'll be replacing the hub before I replace the rim. Anyway, so let's go back to this bike. So firstly, fantastic carbon rims. Perfect braking for road bikes. You don't need anything else. This one here, again, I've seen bikes like this go for a couple of grand, maybe $3,000 at most. You can pick up group sets, like really good group sets. Like this is all pretty much Dura-Ace 9000. The Dura-Ace 9000, although very beautiful and really, really good, the front derailleur and the rear derailleur, absolute perfection, as were the shifters on this thing. Shifting and braking on this was fantastic. There was one major flaw with it, and that was the cranks. So these crank arms for the Dura-Ace 9000 and also the 6800 Ultegra, they had a bit of a design flaw where they would split. And so, you know, I guess that's the reason why this bike doesn't have its original crank anymore. I'm guessing it was had to be swapped after splitting. Unfortunately, they've swapped it with one which also could potentially split, just like the one on my bike, actually. I've got exactly the same crank arm on mine. But again, I've had this for like 6 years now, and it hasn't split yet, so hopefully it won't. And if it does, the great thing is you can warranty these at your local Specialized dealer, and you'll get a free crank. So, you know, again, if you're buying secondhand and you see one of these, don't worry about it, because if it does split, you can just get a new one, or you can warranty it straight away. On the back of the bike, you've also got this steel cassette, which is super lightweight because it's cut out of a single piece of steel. And this is from Recon. Now, the Recon cassettes are a little bit finicky with the 11 tooth. They tend to slip, so I wouldn't recommend them. But if you get one with a second-hand bike, it's not the end of the world. You know, and still, it looks really cool, and it is very lightweight as well. It's lighter than the Dura-Ace cassette that came with the original bike, but obviously the Dura-Ace cassette, the shifting is better. But again, if you saw a second-hand bike with one, it's not the end of the world. When you've worn it out, you can always replace it, so it's not a big deal. Okay, so essentially what you have here is a fantastic road racing bicycle. It's going to be a lot cheaper to pick one of these things up than it is to buy a brand new carbon frame. And what is the real kicker for me is that SL7, Tarmac SL7 with pedals, and that SRAM rival group set, ETAP, that thing weighed in at over 8.5 kilos. Okay? This one weighs in at, let's find out. So we're coming in at 7.46, or 7.47 maybe, well under 7.5 kilos. Okay? So 7.5 kilos, probably around $2,000 to $3,000 versus $6,000 plus for a brand new carbon one, for a carbon bike that weighs 8.5 kilos, 8.5 kilos plus. Which one's the better deal? I'm sorry, but I still think high-end aluminium is a better choice than mid-range carbon every single time. In fact, I think high-end aluminium is a better choice than high-end carbon, because again, if you go for this, especially if you go for one of these things secondhand, which again you can pick up nowadays for relatively little money, you're going to have way more of your budget left over to improve the bike. So even if this bike, say, was secondhand, but it had aluminium wheels and maybe a 105 group set, you're going to pick that up for $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, something like that. And then if your budget is that around that $6,000 that you were considering to spend on a brand new carbon frame, you've now got $4,000 in your pocket to upgrade the bike. With a couple of grand, you can probably get yourself a really nice pair of second-hand carbon wheels and a top-end rim brake mechanical group set, slap that on the bike, and now you've got a bike that's closer to 6 kilos than it is to 8. So to me, it just doesn't make sense to go for the brand new carbon frame. And all the time people say, well, I want to go carbon because it's light and it's stiff. I'm sorry, there ain't much bikes out there. There aren't many bikes that exist in the world which are going to be stiffer than a Specialized Alice. There's just, these things are like solid as a rock. These are some of the stiffest bikes you can possibly ever race on. So if you want stiffness and lightweight, this is a fantastic choice. And like I say, if you go for the tarmac, say for the SL7, for example, or the SL8, because you want the weight advantage, you're going to spend huge amounts of money in order to get it even close to the weight of this bike. So there you go, folks. That's my recommendation. I would always go for the second-hand aluminium frame at 7.5 kilos rather than a brand new $6,000 carbon bike at 8.5 kilos. Just makes sense to me. Okay, so there's a couple more points about this bike that I just wanted to make that I thought of now. When this bike came to me, the customer wanted me to replace the original stem and bar with this thing, which is one of these integrated carbon jobbies with aerodynamic features. Whether it is aerodynamic or not is up to debate, but it looks cool. That's definitely true. Now, what a lot of people think is, again, that carbon is lighter. And so by going to a full carbon setup like that, it would be lighter than something like this, for example, which has an aluminium stem. This is the original stem from Specialized. And it has this lovely carbon S-Works bar on it. This is actually significantly lighter than the new bar and stem integrated thingy, this combination here. So I actually prefer this, and there's several reasons why I prefer this to this. Number one, the aero bar and stem is heavier. Okay, I'll always take lightweight over supposed aero gains personally, because aero gains is not something I can easily measure or feel. Whereas if my bike feels lighter and I weigh it and it is lighter, it's a metric that I can not only prove to myself I have actually gained in, but also I feel that lighter bikes just handle better, they feel more fun to ride, and going uphill and accelerating, you will be faster. Whereas this thing, maybe at 40 kilometers an hour plus, he might be 1 or 2 watts faster, but there's no real way that an individual at home can prove that, because we don't have a wind tunnel. And if you aero test this yourself out on the road, there's too many factors that could potentially influence your results there. So it's something very, very difficult to prove to yourself that you've actually gained. Whereas this, if it's lighter, I can actually prove that there was a gain to be made there. And like I say, this is actually lighter than this by 30 or 40 grams, I think. The other cool thing about this is I find that aluminium stems are much stiffer than carbon. So if you've got a carbon stem that looks just like this, a standard, adjustable stem, then this will probably be stiffer in aluminium than carbon fiber. This will probably be as stiff as this aluminium stem, but you're paying for that by all the material there. Okay, all that extra material there is why this stem is so stiff. It's had to be made extra thick and extra broad in order to increase that stiffness. So you're probably getting a similar level of stiffness, and that's why this thing is weighing more, because there's simply more material here in order to make it as stiff as possible. And the final reason why these are better, in my opinion, and why I prefer stems like this on my bike, is they're adjustable. So with this, the angles and everything here are preset. If you don't like the pitch on this, or you don't like the angle of this, or you don't like the position of this, well, tough luck, you're stuck with it, right? Because you can't even flip this thing. You can't flip the stem to make it higher or lower. You can't change the angle, you can't change the position of the bar, nothing, right? Whereas this, you can roll the bar up or down, you can move the bar side to side if you wanted to, you can flip the stem over and have it pointing up or pointing down. As as you get older as a rider, you're going to end up finding that perhaps certain positions on your bike are less comfortable. Or perhaps during the off season, you don't want such an aggressive position on your bike. It's very easy to flip a stem like this. It's very difficult to flip a stem like this. Well, it's impossible to flip a stem like this. Oh, and another reason why these are better as well is the cabling. So cabling on this is super simple. If you have any issues with the cabling, it's an easy fix. If you want to do any work to your headset, it's an easy fix. So these kind of bikes are very easy to work on, very quick to modify, whereas these things, because everything is internally routed through the bar, it's a long job. You know, a job that takes 5 minutes or 10 minutes with a bar like this is going to take you an hour with a bar like this. All right, so there you go. The other thing I wanted to mention, as I say, this bike is just under 7.5 kilos in this configuration. Lovely bike. I can't really fault it, to be honest with you. It's a bike I'd be happy to own. But this thing has got butyl tubes in it. Okay, so we've got standard butyl tubes down here in these wheels. If he switched them out for TPU tubes, and I have recommended he does this, but I don't know whether he'll go for it or not. First thing I'd recommend is you get rid of those caps because you don't need them. If you switch these out for some TPU tubes, like the Ride Now tubes at 36 grams or 24 grams, you're going to save a lot of weight. You're going to bring this bike down to, you save at least 100 grams off your bike just by changing to a TPU tube or even a latex tube. You're going to get better rolling resistance, so your bike will get faster. You'll get better comfort, especially from a latex tube. But anyway, they're both more comfortable than standard butyl tubes. So again, if he switches to TPU, he can knock another 100 grams or more off his bike weight. He's now got a 7.3 or a 7.2 kilo bike. We're well on the way to 6, right? We're well on the way to 6. That is what I would recommend. I'll put his caps back on. I find a lot of customers really do miss their caps when I take them off, so I'll let him decide if he wants to keep those on there. Right, anyway, folks, thank you for watching, and back to the rest of the video. Ciao for now. So if you've enjoyed today's video and you found it useful, beneficial, interesting, maybe it challenged some of your ideas and maybe it made you change your mind about what bike you should buy next, please do like and subscribe, share with a friend, hit the notification bell, comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And as always, folks, when you're out riding, whatever you're riding, please do stay safe, and I shall see you in the next video. Toodaloo.